Hey everyone, it's Ryan Howe with Summit Business Guides. So today we're going to talk about meetings, specifically how to cost them. One of the requirements that I have for all my clients is that they have a cost associated with every single thing that they do. They're not allowed to just say, "Oh, yeah, we just had this meeting." Like, no, no, how much did that meeting cost you? And this is the method that I work with them on how to do it. Some have a little bit more detail, some are less, but you get the gist of it here. So uh, let's get started. So we got this meeting going on over here. God, great. We got person standing up, all these charts, great call outs are happening. Everybody looks like they got some nice little laptops. Look at yes, and I do see the size of their feet. That's not lost on me here. So let's go and do some calculations. So chair, which would be the chairperson on this, we got one person in charge. I've been to meetings where they got a couple people up there, and I always like to keep that separate. And there's reasons for that. So with that chair, just got one person. Let's assume this individual is making $35 an hour. Again, you can assign whatever dollar value you want, but I'm just throwing 35 in there for this. So let's say this is let's say the meeting typically takes about an hour and a half. An hour and a half for this meeting. But before I can type in the number of hours there, you have to keep in mind that there is you have to associate the preparation time to this meeting. So if you're, the chair, typically in charge of this, you've got usually 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after where you're prepping for the meeting, and then afterwards you're, straightening up and then just, putting everything away from the meeting so that we can move on to the rest of your day. So in this case, for an hour and a half meeting, you got a half hour worth of prep. That gets us to 2 hours. We had, I believe it was 5. Let's just double check again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I got 5 folks there. Let's give them an average pay. I'm just going to pull $24 an hour. You know what? Let's do 26. They deserve a raise. All right, so we got 26. Now in this case, they're for an hour and a half, but typically the preparation for your standard, basically just an individual that's going there, unless they have a larger point, where I'm going with this. Let's just give them 15 minutes, right? 15 minutes. So that's going to be 1 hour and 1.75, 1 hour, 1 3/4 hours. All right, gets us to $297.50 for the cost of that meeting. But wait, there's more. I always try to do burdened costs whenever I can. I never do straight line when it comes to salary, wages. Always want to do the burden cost, all the way down to basically bottom line, as close as I can get. Okay, so benefits, on average, 13%. Some are higher, some are lower, but 13% is kind of where I always just tell people to start with. We'll go there. So that brings us up to $336.18 for this meeting. And the last bit is overhead. Okay, now overhead in this case is really take out the benefits. I always like to treat those separate because I like to be able to separate my costs up so I can get more specificity. Because then you can attack it in different ways if you want to, if you decide you want to get some of those costs down. But that's for another video. All right, so we got overhead here. Overhead in this case is going to be all the resources and everything you need in order to run, basically to be able to run the meeting. So right now, look, we got a table, we got some laptops, I got some cool charts over here, got some, let's see, got a chair. There's a lot of equipment there, the lights are on, things like that. Now, I have no idea what the overhead cost is, so I went to Google. I did a little cheating here, and in this case, restaurants, 35% of sales. These guys don't look like they're in a restaurant. They look more like they're in a professional service firm. About 50% of sales. But we're going to assume, for fun, because these folks look highly professional. I mean, look at these big shoes. Big shoes. I didn't miss them, trust me. Big shoes. Got the white glasses. These folks are definitely professional. So I'm going to assume that they were just be able to keep their overhead at 40%. So right now, one meeting, one time, with this calculation is $470.65. And now the next piece you have to have is, okay, how often is this meeting happening? Right now, in this case, we don't know what they're working on, but let's assume it's it's a pretty regular meeting. But let's say not too regular. Let's say they meet every 2 weeks to discuss. Oh, I don't want to even say schedule. Let's just say there's something with a schedule that they want to talk about, and it's an hour and a half for the meeting. Makes sense for scheduling, but these folks, they only meet every 2 weeks for scheduling. So that's 26 times, right? 52 divided by 2 is 26. So in this case, it is $12,236.77, which you as the business owner are investing into basically into this team to be able to do the schedule every single year. Now with this, as I mentioned, I didn't mention in the beginning here, but meetings exist for one reason. One reason. It's to close information gaps. That's all they do. You are there because there is information that these different parties have that everybody needs in order to be able to make a decision. So in this case, is there something in your processes as far as the way that that these folks would be able looking at? Is there something they can do to get more information, make it more visible, more available to be able to help their scheduling process so they maybe don't need to meet for an hour and a half? What if they were able to, basically just figure out how to do it? Again, I don't know their playbooks, I don't know their processes, but that's something I do help my clients with as far as figuring out those playbooks in a way to make sure as much information is elevated and is to make sure it is transparent as possible so that anyone who's doing anything can then make their decisions. But let's say they were able to cut this in half right there. There's another $6,000 you just saved in productivity time. See, that's the thing. When you look at this overall, it's not like you don't have this meeting and all of a sudden you're going to get the dollars back. You're already paying these people to do this. What you want to do is be able to go back to this and say, okay, if we can cut this in half, that's $6,000 more per year that I have towards projects, towards production, towards making a profit versus organizing a meeting to make up for the lack of information that's available from our current processes. Hopefully that makes sense to you. But let's say it's something else. Let's say that it's not necessarily for scheduling, but we're going to keep the same piece here. And the way that I tell my clients to look at this is basically, what is your end item cost? What is it that they're working towards? Put a dollar value to it, and they have to be able to justify the return on investment for this. Okay, so let's say, again, whatever they're working on here, let's say they have a meeting because there's an issue with the production line that they have to constantly come up to deal with production fixes. So we'll just say production fixes, right? Pretty that up a little bit. Okay. And the production fixes on a whole, what they're doing with this is let's say they cost $60,000 a year is what they're looking to, is what production fixes cost. So right now, what you're saying when you're looking at this right now, baseline, these production fixes, in order to keep them from happening, they know they're saving roughly $60,000. So right now you're getting a 5-to-1, basically, is your return on investment, right? 65 by 12, 5, right? That's your ratio right now. So every 12,000, every 12,000 invested, you're saving 60. So you net, you're gonna net 48 on that. But that's the ratio. Those are the things that I talk with employers about. You need to know what that cost is going to be. So if right now, if they're saying they're only, let's say production fixes is only $20,000 a year they're looking to save, but they're investing $12,236.77 right now. Is that really where you want your time going? Because that $12,236, rather than going toward fixes, what if you were to put that back into production? Right? You got the 20,000 savings, but in this case, you're also not having that money going towards those the other products that are in there. So either way, how I have clients, they look at it a different way, but regardless, this is the first step. They need to know what the cost is here and what they're trying to fix, or whatever they're meeting towards. So with that, this is where now, just for fun, I'm gonna be the last one here. Holiday party. Okay, you feel free to put any dollar value you want in there. If you're a business owner, you already know where I'm going at on this, as far as a holiday party planning. Okay, so with that, this is it. This is what people use, being folks that work with me at Summit Business Guides. Now we take this next information and we use it in other bits of our process planning and things of that nature. And if you want to learn more about that, feel free to reach out to me, summitbusinessguides.com. You can follow me I'm on Insta, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Howe, Summit Business Guide. So if you have any other questions, but yeah, this is it. This is what we work with my teams on. This is one of the data points that's out there that's missing, all with the hope of, again, quantifying how much you are paying and you are investing in order to close an information gap, and then to help you make that decision if you want to go ahead and spend time on that process to eliminate that gap or shrink it, or understand that this is actually a good expenditure of your capital because of the return on investment. All right, see you next time.